And the key thing is that people have a good understanding about what it is that they're being offered and how these things operate. So without further ado, I'll just quickly walk through just a brief intro and we'll get started. So basically, for those of you that don't know myself, I run a financial services company called Alpha Wealth. We're primarily based in Cork. There's 6 of us currently working as financial advisors. We have a small presence in Dublin, and I'd like you to see us as an independent brokerage. We would like to position ourselves as low-cost brokers. I've said this to everyone that I've ever come across, that I've worked in banks for long enough. When I came to Ireland, I have an economics degree from the London School of Economics, and I worked in investment banking in Merrill Lynch for 4 years. I have seen financial advisory firms charge too much. We were talking earlier about the prime time program last night, about the excessive commissions that brokers were charging, which is scandalous, in my opinion. This is a completely different proposition, and I just want to make people very aware of that. So today's opportunity, and Simon's going to spend about 20 minutes just talking to you about EMEX, about the opportunity for investors, about how you can get tax back. But the scheme itself is a government-backed scheme. It has been available in Ireland since 2011. It's called the Employment Investment Incentive Scheme, or EIIS as it's commonly known. I've had personal experience of investing in these schemes. It is primarily for people who suffer tax at the higher rate. So typically anyone who's earning over 38,000 a year. One of the key advantages of this scheme is that it can be used for passive income, such as rental income. So it's not just on your earned income. So for example, somebody who's earning 50,000 euros a year, whether it's made up of earned income or a combination of rental and earned income, they have the opportunity to reduce the tax that they suffer in 2021. And I'm going to quickly talk to you about an example, which is basically, in order for you to qualify for this investment, there are 2 things that you must have. One is the income at the high rate, which I've just expressed an example of. And the other is that you have to have monies in a personal bank account in order to utilize the scheme. Now, some of you may not have the example I've given here, 10,000 euros sitting in the bank, but you have an opportunity, not just this year, but potentially next year. And you have months in which to get that money together. And this is where David and myself and other people in Alpha Wealth can help you trying to pull together those funds, whether it be from your company, whether it be from reducing other costs and expenses that you may have, or you may be sitting with money in the bank that's earning nothing for you. And I see this as a really viable opportunity, because the one key thing to know is that if you were to make a contribution to EMEX in this example, and I think EMEX is the best company in Ireland that are offering this opportunity, the Irish government will give you back 40% of your contribution next year. So for anyone that invests the figure of 10,000 euros, we're offering an opportunity with a reduced fee, which is normally 3%, but for anyone that takes advantage of this scheme before the end of May, that fee is reduced to 2%. So it's 200 euros, which is the all-in fee, and that allows you an opportunity to benefit from a 40% or a 4,000 euros rebate next year. And Simon and his company EMEX will look to pay you back your contribution, and they've increased the potential profit to you of 30%. So on that example, it's 3,000 euros. So in this example, what we're saying here is that you can invest 10,000. It would normally be a 2,000 euros profit, but Simon has agreed to allow that to go up to 30% or 3,000 euros on the basis that EMEX is worth 30% more in 4 years' time than it is today, which I think is a very reasonable assumption and expectation. And for your net investment of 6,000 euros, you're looking to get a return of 13,000. There is a small bit of capital gains to suffer on that, which will give you a net return of 12,430. That's it. That is the proposition that's being offered to you today. And again, myself and David and other members of Alpha Wealth can talk to you more detail. But what I want to do now is give the opportunity to listen to Simon and hear about why you should consider investing in EMEX and why we feel they're such a strong company. So without further ado, I'll give Simon the reins. And as I said, we're available to talk to you afterwards. And indeed, please feel free to utilize the chat function today. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. It's a great introduction. Always very concise. Hopefully, I'm screen sharing with you here, guys. It's great to meet you all. Delighted to get the chance to present EMEX in person. We love talking about our company because we're really excited about what we do and how we're growing the business going forward. So, for the benefit of people who haven't come across EMEX at all, we're a software company and we rent our software to large companies around the world as what's called SaaS. So, SaaS is a very hot software sector. Companies like Salesforce would come to mind for you guys, or Teams, or Slack, or even Zoom here are all SaaS companies. And these companies are being valued very highly around the world. And that's our ambition in EMEX here. We're building a SaaS company. And the focus that we have is we're focusing on safety, risk management, and sustainability for our clients. And these are all increasingly important topics for our customers around the world as regulations are coming in, making it just every business owner in the world has to deal with these things now. And they're coming to companies like EMEX to buy our software to solve this problem for them. Key people in the company are Richard and myself. We've been involved in the business for over 10 years. We've invested our personal money in the business and we're completely committed to growing this into the largest business we can make it. Richard's, an essential partner of mine. He's Accenture trained. He's a fantastic executive. He's chief executive of the company and he drives and manages the entire team there. And I'm co-founder with Richard, principally involved with the finance of the company here. Hence, you get to meet me on this call. But essentially, we're both hugely passionate about what the company does and really the opportunity we have now to build a big Irish software company that can kind of make a dent in the world. And the support of investors like yourselves helping us get there is fantastic. The government scheme here that Nick has mentioned, EIS, is a really good scheme for Irish companies. It encourages us to raise money from people like yourselves and encourages us to invest in innovative technologies like software. And it's not available in England or in Germany or around Europe like that. So it's a fantastic way for Ireland to build Irish software companies, which we're also really passionate about. You'll be hopefully have read in the world about this ESG movement which is going on, which is essentially the culmination of many years of the environmental movement, the sustainability movement coming together. And essentially what's really got us got growth going very well in EMEX is that ESG now is on every company's agenda in the world. So I'll show you later on some of the companies we're dealing with at the moment who aren't customers yet, but they're coming through our sales funnel. And essentially, there's a huge amount of pressure on companies to produce ESG reports. To produce an ESG report, if you're a company, you have to gather lots of information from your business, the environmental impact, the carbon impact, your employees, and how you're governed at a kind of director level, your diversity of staff. There's a huge range of new information flows companies have to get, and all of that doesn't come out of their financial system. So this is why this new software sector has been created called ESG. And EMEX, through a mixture of kind of our vision going forward and really luck, is kind of right in the middle of the sector because we've been working here for the past 5 years on the environmental piece, and it's given us this first mover advantage in our global competitive space, and that's what's really growing the business. So whilst COVID affected most companies negatively last year, as everyone's familiar, we grew last year. We added new customers because pandemic or no pandemic, these companies have to build their systems to grow to be able to report to ESG. Without kind of laboring this one too much, it's new European regulations are coming in 2024, for example, mandating every public company to have a full ESG report. So there's just every day companies are being assaulted by new regulations on this kind of stuff. And we're as a solution for the companies with our software. As a flavor for some of the companies who we already deal with, and this is just a sample, EMEX has 35 staff at the moment. We sort of grew from about 20 last year and we added 15 people through the COVID year just because we raised successfully here with Nick and his partners EIS capital last year. And that's what allows us to grow the business. We've added salespeople, we've added software developers, and we've added marketing people. And these are the kind of customers we deal with every day. And these are the kind of customers who are coming to us going forward. So for example, here, we're all familiar with IKEA. We run the global systems for IKEA out of the Middle East for all their safety and sustainability. It's a great client to talk about because IKEA is a leader in the environmental movement. We all know their furniture. and they're looking to roll out what they've done with us around the world. So these kind of companies, we often start on a small base with a company, and then we get to grow very quickly. And as we grow those companies, we're growing the kind of revenue with those companies. Irish Life is another example here of a local success we had in Ireland. They're a customer where we charge, we're very transparent here, €20,000 a year, but it's given us insights into this office-based financial service customer. We did all their back to work COVID compliance for Irish Life and all their staff at work, working at home kind of assessments. So that was only really possible with Irish Life through technology. And now we're in the UK talking to companies like Allianz and similar financial services firms like Irish Life. So every sector we're touching, we're finding more demand from more customers, and that's how we grow the business. A huge win last year is a company you probably won't have heard of here called ERG. It's one of the world's biggest mining companies out of Kazakhstan. I mention it here because we signed a $1.5 million contract last year with ERG in September, and we're currently rolling out the software with them. That's about 100,000 employees, and all the lithium batteries and copper and cobalt in our mobile phones and stuff is being supplied by these mining companies like ERG. So I suppose what I'm looking to kind of get you all to realize here from this screen is that there's a very wide range of companies we deal with, which is essentially every company in the world potentially. And that's why we're really confident about how our business can grow into the future. In terms of the key modules and the key sections that we solve for companies, and apologies for people here who aren't kind of safety or software people, but each one of these is a section that every company in the world has to operate within. And again, software is the only way big companies can manage anything complex like this. So EHS here, I suppose, is the buzzword for safety, health and safety, risk management. We all know it's kind of a thing that's kind of, it's discussed, I suppose, widely in media. Sometimes it's ridiculed by the likes of Jeremy Clarkson, but really every company has to ensure its employees are looked after, not injured in work. That includes now pandemics and COVID and the like. It's beginning to expand to include mental health. And really, every company's got huge pressure to look after its employees. And incrementally, they all sort of, we call it, they kind of crack and they start dealing with EMEX saying, we need a big software system to manage this because we've 30,000 employees or 20,000 employees. And the only way to manage this is through software like ours. And then similarly in environmental performance and ESG, these are obviously hitting the headlines every day. We had Earth Day yesterday. We've the climate conference going on in America at the moment. And that's what's driving the companies to ring us here and buy software for environmental management, because they're seeing from the leaders like Joe Biden, even from the Russians and the Chinese, that this is the next massive global crisis coming at us, and every company has to report by law what their environmental performance is, and then ultimately what their ESG reporting is, which is environmental mixed with all their people, mixed with metrics like their governance and how they treat the local communities and the like. So it's a great environment for us to trade in. We're sort of in a very customer rich environment where every day we're getting inquiries from new customers. And that's why we're super confident about growing our business. And it's also why we're raising money here with Nick and yourselves, because we know the key to building a large software company is having the capital in the business to hire brilliant people and then go and convert these inquiries into sales. I won't spend much longer here on ESG, guys. I'm totally open to having any kind of direct conversation with anybody. I know maybe some of you are probably working in ESG or hearing about it and wanting to learn more about it. And we're very happy to be kind of, chatting about that and seeing what kind of connections you might have. One of our investors last year, through Nick, was working in this area, and it's kind of turning into a potential sale for us. So we're totally aware that you guys as investors are also kind of hopefully ultimately salespeople for brand EMEX in the companies that you work in as well. So it's an ecosystem we're trying to build in many different ways. I think it's worth pointing out here from a technology point of view, our software runs on the cloud, and it also runs here on very intuitive mobile apps. And that's really where we get very deep into our customers. If you visualize a company in Ireland, let's say Intel and LeakSlip, who aren't a customer of ours, if they came on board as a customer, all the employees of LeakSlip of Intel will be using our mobile apps to record the environmental data around the business. They'll be recording their behavioral safety information here. They'll be recording and acting upon incidents and accidents. And as we get deeper into clients like that, that's where, I suppose, as our ecosystem of users expands to hundreds of thousands of people, as people move around companies, it helps us sell our product into new companies because all the staff are really moving around. And this is where success kind of leads to more success. A little history of the company, just to kind of give you context of the whole thing. We are 10 years old. this will run through its little slide deck here. But the key point here is as we've gone into 18 and 19 and 20, we've really we've put our foot to the floor in the business and accelerated what we're doing. So in the early years of building EMEX, you can imagine the economic environment we were operating in 10, 11, 12. Ireland was a reasonably bleak place, and we had to go quite slow as to how we added these customers. But every year we've been adding new key customers to the business. Early on here, we were working with very large oil and gas clients like Rosneft and Gazprom. And then through 16 and 17, we were working with Hanover County in America. Holcim is a super large cement company out of France and Switzerland. And every year we're adding more and more customers. And I suppose the nature of SaaS is that these customers pay us money every year. So it's like renting a building SaaS. Every year we get rent from every customer for our software. So it's a fantastic invention by Mark Benioff and Salesforce, because it means, we get paid every year by E or G here, or Dangote or Coesia, or by Eni or Irish Life, and it just builds up every year. And that's why we can be very confident with you guys and with Nick here saying our revenue will increase every year going forward, because we're adding customers to the current customers. That's what's kind of unique about SaaS software, and that's why companies like EMEX are very sought after by private equity purchases in America, or as we get near the end of this presentation and talk about how we exit this company and return your investment, which is really important. It's why there's so many buyers for the business as we grow at scale and make it bigger and more valuable. I suppose what's really important about us raising money, and what's really important about raising money here with you guys, is that we get to talk to more customers. And that's why I've put this slide here. And hopefully it's showing you that every week, because this is sort of the engine of EMEX, is about talking to new customers and bringing them into our pipeline. So every week at the moment with our sales team in London, we're reaching out to 500 companies on either LinkedIn, emails, or on the phone. And it's kind of called inside sales and software, but that just brings in a continual stream of kind of new inquiries. It also brings in people saying we're not interested. So we're quickly filtering through who's interested in buying our product and who's not interested. And then at the same time, we're advertising on LinkedIn, Google AdWords, and a corporate website called Capterra, where people are seeing our adverts and they're kind of approaching us saying, we're interested in your product. And essentially that allows us build this revenue pipeline. So at the moment, we've 30 big opportunities in our pipeline that we expect to get revenue of 2 million euros of, this year. We see this pipeline growing through 2021 and into 22, and always being higher than 30 and growing to 40 and 50 and 60 opportunities. And that's how you grow your classic software company. At the same time, we're receiving over 50 inbounds per month to the EMEX website. And these are from large companies here. I've listed a few: Jones Lang. We just did a deal last week, I'll mention here, with IKEA. It's not official. With Visa. So Visa Europe is taking on EMEX as a platform to manage all of their properties in Europe. And we're talking about expanding that out to Visa in Asia, Pacific, China, America. So again, I suppose super brand name companies choosing to work with us to solve this problem. As you build a business like ours, you've got to be very ambitious. And I suppose this is our ambitious growth plan, and I suppose this is what we're asking you guys to kind of support us on. We're currently what we would call a small software company here, although in Irish terms we're quite successful. And as we build out our sales revenue over the next 5 years, this is how we make our business very valuable and how we get to return the investment back to yourselves here in 2024 and 2025. And I suppose that highlight here is that the direct selling line, the dark green color at the bottom here, is how we directly sell our product to customers. I suppose the heavy lifting of ringing them, calling them, and advertising to them. But what begins to build up in EMEX, and this is what we're putting the foundations at the moment, is that our partner channel begins to build up and get bigger. So at the moment, we're talking to KPMG, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and similar global partners like that. And because of this global drive towards ESG, they're approaching EMEX saying, we want to work with you and help get your product into our customers to build their capacity for non-financial reporting. So as those kind of big brand names align with us, obviously we can quickly transform this kind of heavy lifting selling we're doing at the moment into partner sales. And that's where we kind of look more like this North American software company, and our growth curves begin to really drive very strong. I'll also mention here the EMEX project. EMEX at the moment is mainly purchased by big companies. You see the names there like Visa, IKEA, and the like, and they're sort of all, let's say, minimum 500 to 1,000 people companies. And EMEX is our online light product that we're developing at the moment, and that'll allow much smaller companies to get on board and get this kind of same capacity as large companies on a very discrete cloud platform for less per user. So we see that as a huge growth pipeline in the future, and that's why we're And these multiple revenue streams just begin to drive our business bigger and bigger and bigger. And as we do that, we get more valuable, and it sort of cements our exit at the end. I'm going to focus on the exit now. I think in principle, we're raising €3 million in total at the moment. It'll be a mix of EIS here with Nick and the guys and different forms of capital. And I suppose the highlight here is that we spend most of our money going out to get new customers because our product is already developed. So the way we get the biggest bang for our buck is spending on sales and marketing. And then obviously continuing to develop our products is very important, continuing to have excellent software improving all the time, or else we'll fall behind our competitors. And having, I suppose, sustainable cash reserves in the background is also very important. We've an agenda in 2024 to list or sell the business to a private equity company. So we know as part of that process, we've got to enhance our management team, bring on board the appropriate level board directors and advisors, just to, again, increase the capacity of the company to be a bigger, larger company in the world. And then exit's very important because we know ultimately it's about returning these investments. If you choose to trust us with your money on this EIS model, we're very focused on hitting these exits. From a trade sale point of view, we will have been approached 3 or 4 times already to be sold. EMEX hits a lot of radars. So if people are acquiring companies like ours, are always approaching us to sell it, and we think it's too early for us to sell the business today. We want to be bigger and more successful before we sell it. But I suppose it's a good, hopefully reassuring for yourselves to see that this is already on the table for me. But as an owner of the business, I want to build it. We want to be more successful and larger before we sell it. Private equity is a very sophisticated model that takes out a lot of companies at the moment. And we, again, are regularly approached by private equity firms looking to co-invest or take a third share. And the reason we're not executing that strategy yet is that, again, we want our revenue to be larger. We'd like to be doing at least 5 to 10 million euros revenue before we really have a conversation with private equity, just because it gives us the strength to get a higher price on the exit and lets us build the firm bigger. And that's kind of why EAS is a great way for us to raise capital, because it gives us the capacity to grow without having to deal with these institutions yet, and we can get stronger and stronger. And then our preferred exit for the business is to grow it all the way through to an IPO. And that's obviously the ultimate exit for a software company. We can sort of, we're all reading about Stripe and the really successful Irish companies, and our real goal is to be kind of in that kind of ecosystem. And for us to get there, we've got to navigate, complex capital markets, and it's not a certain exit for us, but we'd see that as our ultimate desire here. A version of EMEX just listed about last month on the Oslo Stock Exchange. It was a roll up of 5 companies like EMEX, and they listed at a market cap of 400 million euros. So that was a great endorsement of value for what we do. They had approached us to buy the business pre-floating, and we had said no. So we can see what they've done, and it's a pathway we now want to follow. I thought it might be interesting for a few minutes to give you a quick flavor. I'm at 23 minutes, Nick. I think we're doing okay. I thought I'd do 2 things for you guys just to give you, because the key thing for EMEX building value and redeeming the investment here is to bring in new customers. So I'll give you a quick glimpse as to who the customers we're dealing with today. Because revenue is kind of a historic figure in a software company. It's all about who you're talking to as opposed to who you've sold to. So this is HubSpot. If you guys haven't seen it, it's a cloud app all of our software guys use, and it shows the customers who are emailing EMEX every week. So for example, this week I've had 10 contacts on HubSpot, and last week I had 19, which is one of our good weeks. And we can see here since the beginning of January, I'm on a growth curve. And as we go through 2021, this is something we'll be tracking and sharing with Nick, which is these numbers will be rising to 20 and 30 and 40 per week. To give you a flavor of the kind of companies who approach us, there's a couple I'll mention here. This was the Allianz inquiry. So on the 15th of April, Allianz emailed us. Essentially, this is the power of software, saying, hi EMEX, we'd like to talk to you about buying your product. And I think it's always good to see this real for people. Oh, sorry, that's my ad. I'll skip that one. And as an inquiry comes into us, you'll see here, this is from Allianz. And essentially they're saying they have a legitimate interest. They're investigating off-the-shelf health and safety management systems, and they want to talk to EMEX. So that's great. We've picked up that. We'll be in conversations with Allianz now. We'll hopefully get a deal done, but we'll certainly be in a competitive process. Another one that I'll highlight here without going too deep, because I really enjoyed this one. I also got an email from McLaren F1 last week from Anita Buckley. So this got us all a bit excited in the office because we quite like the F1 racing. And Anita said to us here, Can you contact us tomorrow about health and safety and environment platforms? So that was from McLaren Formula One. I won't make you watch the video, but it was pretty good. So essentially, every day we're receiving these kind of inquiries, and what happens in the business is that they then come into our sales team in Salesforce. We've got about 10 people in London who are processing sales. And as someone's come into our, there's probably sales guys on the phone here, we're taking them through the whole process. This is our pipeline at the moment, and a couple of highlights I'll make just to show you the kind of companies we're dealing with. I'd mention here Qiddiya, for example. It's a low probability sale, but this is a new Saudi Arabian city that's being built. And actually, we're quite deep with Qiddiya here, and we're talking to Qiddiya. They're building a whole new city on the Red Sea. It's an amazing project. But the Dublin Airport Authority is also dealing with Qiddiya to build a new airport there. And we're both actually jointly approaching that with a view to taking Qiddiya as a big sustainability city for the future. Other brand names you might recognize here is companies like Kingspan. They've obviously had terrible incidents there in Grenfell and the fire, and that prompted them to contact us saying we need to improve our internal systems. We can't have this exposure of poor construction, poor manufacturing process, staff on WhatsApp slandering the company, and it all appearing in the media. So as companies begin to realize you've got to be a good corporate citizen, they tend to contact us saying, how can you systemize that for us? So this is how EMEX kind of builds its revenue for the future. You can see Metro Bank here. You can see Visa here. It's a small initial sale of €10,000. That's now a done deal, but that's just Visa buying one module of us, and we're discussing kind of future modules with them. We'd see Visa being at least €100,000 a year customer over the next couple of years. We can see the Ugandan National Oil Company. So that's the business of EMEX. We deal with customers, we bring them in, and we sell our product. And I was going to give you a very, very final quick glance of the product. I think it's important to understand that what customers get from EMEX and why they use us. So I preloaded a screen here. This is the EMEX Cloud application you're looking at. And this is just a simple screen that a client will get around there. They're in their sustainability reports and they're looking at their human capital dashboard. So this is the kind of stuff that everyone from AIB, Bank of Ireland, Kingspan has to report on nowadays. And it's really difficult for them to get this information out of a payroll system. And they come to us and we sort of suck the information from a couple of systems and present it very easily for their board and ultimately for their annual reports. A similar carbon dashboard here is a carbon forecasting dashboard. So again, every company in the world is now being forced to report on their carbon statistics. This will load in a second, hopefully. I'll give it a forced reboot. And the pressure to report on these metrics means, again, the only way to do it is with software systems like EMEX. Carbon monthly report. Here we go. So this is the kind of carbon information our clients are seeking to get out. So they're seeking to compare scope 1, scope 2 allowances of different forms of carbon. They're comparing year on year. And essentially they're trying to justify, whilst we have a carbon footprint, how do we minimize it, or how do we justify corporately, why it is what it is and our economic input into the environment is good. These are the kind of discussions we're having at the moment with the Dublin Airport Authority, for example. The forecasting database is interesting just because it's allowing companies forecast. We have a little tool in the application that lets companies forecast what their carbon emissions will be in the future. And this is where it gets very interesting for the CFOs and chief executives, because the history is grand, but they want to be forecasting how it's going to perform. And we have some machine learning algorithms here which are driving this forecastability. So hopefully showing you around that, you have a little glimpse of the product. It is a sophisticated software product. It's bought by large companies. We deal with really great brand name companies. I suppose we've a tried and trusted process as to how we get them, how we win them, and how we convert them to revenue. And the magic that you're giving us here is that you're giving us the capital to allow us to do more of that, at pace, hire more people, train more people, and really build, one of Ireland's great software companies is our ultimate ambition. So Nick, I think I've taken everyone's time there. I hope I covered enough. I'm totally open to any kind of questions people have, or any questions you have, Nick.
Thank you very much, Simon. So we'll open the floor up. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to unmute your mic. I suppose for those of you that were maybe late joining the presentation, and there is a video that we're recording that we can forward on to you, just to remind you of the opportunity today is that we really are focused on people who are suffering tax at the higher rates, so anyone who's earning over 38,000 a year typically. And the opportunity for EMEX is really an alternative, a complement to pensions. It's a really good opportunity for individuals. The example that I've put up on the screen here is for anyone who is in a position between now and year end. And ideally, what we're saying to people is get your investment in early. there is a bonus that Simon has agreed to before the end of May, where you invest a figure of, say, 10,000 euros and you get 4,000 back from the Irish government next year. And at the end of a 4-year period, there is an expectation of 13,000 euros back to you. It's more than double your investment. And this is a totally bona fide scheme. It became more attractive when Pascal Donoghue stood up in the Dáil in November 19 and gave life to the EIS model. And that's why, as a financial advisory firm, we've been promoting this. And I'm delighted that Simon and EMEX are in this space, because they are, as I said before, the strongest company, in my opinion. And I'm delighted for people who are invested since 2020, potentially maybe looking to add further funds. And for those of you that haven't invested in EIS before or haven't invested in EMEX, I'd really encourage you to take opportunity. So I'm conscious of time as well, but if anyone would like to answer any questions, please do feel free to unmute your mic. Myself and David